Hello guys, I am GDP and today I am releasing my PvE tier list post-anniversary, and here's a little bit of damage reports. Hello guys, I hope you guys enjoyed those clips of those little PvE damage numbers I have gotten post-anniversary with the new heroes. Today I am finally releasing my new PvE tier list for post-anniversary 2020. First things first, not a whole lot has changed in the list. However, with the addition of the new heroes, PvE has gotten a lot easier, primarily because of Drake, and the effect that he has on PvE is astronomical and pretty insane, and it's pretty much going to force DH's hands to pretty much add more PvE content, I would hope, because once people start building these heroes, they're going to be clearing broken spaces really quickly, and Flame Shrine is going to be coming into really high damage numbers where they might want to consider adding extra tiers past what they have with the 3-tier system they have right now, where all you have to get is 150 billion damage as a team, when you can do that basically by yourself in 1 to 2 hits nowadays. So let's go ahead, let's get started. So first things first, I have Hart Watcher here in the damage dealer tier list just because she is a required hero for your team. She will provide the most damage boost to your team regardless out of what heroes you're running. So pretty much no matter what, you are going to be running a Hart Watcher every single time, no matter what. If you don't have a Hart Watcher in your PvE team, you are doing something very wrong. So let's go move over to the C and D tier list. Nothing has changed here. Once again, the only notable things on here are Beria could go up, possibly, depending on his fights. Bloodbade and Zia are both dot dealers who could potentially work with a Delacium army. Ada is pretty good for early game whales where their PvE teams aren't built up and they're not living a very long time. So Ada can actually produce a lot of damage in those short rounds and would probably be one of your highest damage dealers in the early game for a whale if they are building Ada, which nowadays they probably won't be. They'll probably build in a Russ, but I stuck Ada there just in case. Penny down here, she's one of the first E5 heroes that exist out there. Probably one of the best first E5s besides Delacium. I think Delacium is probably one of the better ones now. But Penny is down here in C just because of how inconsistent she is. Unimax is down here just because he can do really good in some fights, but other fights he doesn't do very good at all. Omnivore, same thing. He can do good in some fights. He can do pretty well paired up with another Dosmog or another Omnivore, but he's not very consistent. He's not going to do a whole lot of damage. Let's go ahead and move to the B tier list. In B tier list, we have Aspen plus 35%. What this means is that for a boss that is above 35% health pool, so this means most likely Flame Shine every single time, or at Broken Spaces on your first couple hits, Aspen will belong down into the B tier, just simply because he hasn't tapped into his execute range yet, so he doesn't have the extra damage, but his overall damage is pretty good. B tier list is going to average anywhere from 1 billion to 2 to 2.5 billion possibly. Both Terra, Aspen, Skiri, Asmodal, Horus, all those heroes can do it. Horus can go really, really high in his damage if he gets hit a lot. Some bosses actually do hit the first slot a lot, so Horus can do a lot of damage. I have seen Horus do 3 billion, 3.5 billion before. So Horus kind of really depends what boss he's fighting and how many times he's going to get hit. So let's go ahead, move on to the A tier list. In the A tier list here, we have double DOS Moog. You can run triple DOS Moog. Essentially, they work better in pairs. There are 2+. The reason for this is because DOS Moog gains energy each time one of his allies gains energy or uses his active. So this means that pairing DOS Moogs with support heroes that have the glittery, radiant, or splendid demon bell will work really, really, really well for DOS Moog teams. Those demon bell artifacts do work good for almost all PvE teams, but for DOS Moog, it's really going to be noticeable just because DOS Moog, his damage increases each time he uses an active, and he needs to do really, really, really high damage. He needs to use a bunch of actives. Next, we have Aspen, minus 35%. So what this means is on a boss for Broken Spaces, if the boss is below 35%, Aspen will be in the A tier. His damage is going to be really high. You're most likely going to see him anywhere from the 3 billion to 6 to 7 billion damage range, depending on what support heroes you are running. 2 times Skiri is going to do a lot of damage, not going to be as good as 3 times Skiri, but will produce a very, very significant amounts of damage. Naki and Sigmund, they both can do really, really good damage, anywhere from the 4 to 6 billion range, depending on what supports you have. And this is talking about E5 Sigmund here, not a 6-star or a 7-star. Those are just basically supports essentially for a burn buff or an armor strip. But when Sigmund is E5, he will actually do a decent amount of damage. Delacium, I have him at A tier with this is with no dot dealers. This is more of you have a lot of debuffs going out and you're able to just do a bunch of actives and basics with extra damage because you got a lot of debuffs coming out or unique debuffs. A lot of times you're not going to use Delacium in that situation. You might just because if you have Delacium as your first E5 hero, if you're a new player. But yeah, so if you have just a Delacium and you have a bunch of debuffs out, that Delacium is probably going to be in the A tier in the damage range. So let's go ahead and move on to the S to S+. So as you can see, I have added a new item to this tier list. I have added these green arrows. What these green arrows mean is if you run a 5 support composition, these heroes will move up a tier. For Aqua, it's actually 2 tiers. So for the first and the S, we got 3 to 4 times Skiri. You can't really do a support boost on this 3 to 4 times Skiri just because you have 3 to 4 Skiri in the team, so you can't do that. But that team will produce a lot of damage, especially on the Melassa bosses. Skiris lose their flavor once you go to Broken Spaces because they seem to have trouble on Broken Spaces 6 and 7 and don't do those in few tickets. It take more than other teams. For Garuda, once again, is a very solid damage dealer. Probably was one of the best damage dealers in the game before Thaqua and Russell. If you're able to run a Ruda boost team, which would mean like an Olivia or Goerke with a Belrain, Drake, just basically a bunch of supports. Garuda's damage will skyrocket. I have seen Garuda's damage go to 20 billion as a single damage dealer. So that's really, really high. Same goes for Russell. If you have Russell in a 5 support composition, you'll be able to get Russell's damage anywhere from the 18 to 20 billion range, depending on what supports you run. Most likely you're probably going to be at 16 billion if you don't have the right supports. But if you run a Russell boost composition, you will see really, really, really high numbers with him. I personally have only tested him before the buff, and I was getting anywhere from 15 to 16 billion with him. But post buff, I would imagine you could easily get a 20 billion because at the round 14 and 15, his light arrows are going to be hitting anywhere from 120 million per to 150 million per. So that damage adds up really, really, really quickly in those later rounds, and that's the majority of where his damage is coming from. For Thaqua, if you run her in a 5 support composition, I have gotten 30 billion damage from her. That is the most damage I've seen out of any hero in the entire game, just for going a 1 damage dealer 5 support composition. So I think Thaqua deserves 2 arrows here, because she essentially moves up into like the S+, S++ tier if you have a boost composition for her. But most of the time, you're going to run a Delacium army if you have a Thaqua. But I just put this here just so people know that Thaqua pretty much is the best damage dealer in the entire game. But if you're talking about team as a whole, she's gonna fit in with those Delaciums, because those Delaciums are going to replicate her damage, and that's when we come with the S+, where we got 2 to 3 Dela with a dot dealer. Most likely you're gonna have a Thaqua. You can run Sigmund, you can run Nakia, you can run Das Moog. Those are probably the best dot dealers that you have, but a little bit more about that later. So let's go on to our pets, or not pets. Let's go to our team composition. So for my best team composition, I have come up with 2 team comps. Kind of depends on what your goals are. If you're looking for consistency and really high numbers all the time, you're going to want to run 3 Delacium, a Drake, a Thaqua, and a Hart Watcher. The reason being for this is you're not going to get any dot synergy from your pet, but you're going to be concentrating all of your replications on a Thaqua. So your damage is going to be very, very, very consistent, and it's gonna basically cap out. You're not gonna be having a whole lot of room for expansion by running this, because you're not benefiting from the pet buffs. Right now, Athaqua's dots don't seem to be interacting very well with Snake or Wolf. So if you're gonna run this team, just go ahead, run Phoenix. It's better stats on the Phoenix, so you're gonna get more damage from the Phoenix out of this team. If you are looking for the highest damage possible that you'd ever do, you're probably going to have to go to the double Delacium Drake Sigmund Thaqua Hart Watcher. The reason for this is if you hit the RNG lottery where your 2 Delaciums are copying Thaqua's damage over and over and over and not picking Sigmund's dots, you are going to get a lot more damage out of the double Delacium with Drake versus 3 Delacium and Drake and no Sigmund. The reason for this is simply because the Thaqua's damage is going to be boosted by the pet, and if you get really, really, really lucky, you can possibly just keep on replicating those dots with the Delaciums instead of the Sigmund's dots, and you'll get insane damage but it's not going to be a consistently super high damage just because the fact that the Delaciums can pull dots from the Sigmund, and most likely your Sigmund dots are going to be really, really low because you're going to be running him either a 6-star or 7-star, and you can also be running a Death Sworn instead of the Sigmund. That is an option, but sometimes Delacium's damage from his actives, especially like on a Melassa boss, are actually very considerably high because Delacium's at E5, the Delacium active can do 4 to 5 billion in one hit. So that damage is not no joke. It will be significant in his damage report. So I'm putting that out there. Just keep in mind that you can use Deathsworn instead of Sigmund in that team if you want to just concentrate the dot replications instead of the armor replication. So let's go ahead and go on to pets. Obviously, you got Phoenix, Wolf, and Snake. Nothing has changed there. So I'm not going to really talk about that. Same as the dot dealers. Dot dealer list, tier list has not changed. The Thakwa is still sitting at the top, followed by Nakia, then Dasmog, Ja, and Sigmund. Out of the A tier, Dasmog probably is your best bet. But I have ran Sigmund, and I've seen 20-30 billion damage out of a Sigmund in a Delacium army. So still really good. And then to wrap up the tier list, the only other thing that has changed is Drake. I have added a new tier into the support tier list, S+, and Drake belongs by himself in the S+ because he brings the most damage that is possible to the team. I have also actually added 2 to 3 Delacium in the A tier for the support tier list just because you can get a armor reduction all the way to 100% by running 2 Delaciums. So this will boost your Garuda, this will boost your Thakwa, Russell, whatever you're running. If you don't have a Drake or you just want to run 2 Delaciums for replicating a Sigmund's armor reduction and burn, you can do that, and it fits into the A tier because the amount of damage that's boosted from that, it belongs in the A tier because it brings damage mitigation and a damage boost, which are really, really helpful in the current PvE meta because a lot of times you don't even need a healer anymore. I'm not going to talk about Amon-Ra, Gustin, or Cruz or any of them. They're pretty much self-explanatory. Cruz brings his weaken mark and his armor reduction. Ormus' heals. Gustin will help remove your debuffs, and Amon-Ra will give you shields. Goerke, Belrain, and Olivia in the S tier. Pretty self-explanatory. Belrain's just the best PvE healer in the game. Goerke's the second best damage booster in the game, and then Olivia is probably right there equal in the damage boost of Belrain, but won't provide the same amount of heals. So this is my tier list for post-anniversary. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I talked a lot longer than I thought I would be. I thought this would be more of a 10-minute video, but it looks like it's going to be about an 18-minute video. So thanks for bearing with me and listening to me talk about my tier list, and thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.